The dust-coated windows of Prosperity Creek's general store rattled as the stagecoach thundered into town, carrying with it Penelope Radcliff's future, a future she had never chosen. Standing on the porch, her fingers anxiously twisting the locket around her neck, she swallowed back the bitter taste of resignation that had been her constant companion since her father's letter arrived. "He'll be arriving Tuesday," the letter had stated bluntly. "The arrangements are final. Mr. Benson has agreed to take you as his wife, and his mining investments will save the family name." Simple words that had shattered her world. The year was 1875, and the Montana Territory was as unforgiving as it was beautiful. Penelope had spent her 22 years of life preparing for a reality she never wanted to be bartered away to preserve her family's crumbling fortune. "You look like you're waiting for your own funeral procession," a deep voice rumbled from behind her. Penelope turned to find a tall, broad-shouldered man leaning against the store's doorframe. His eyes were the color of a summer sky, startling against his sun-darkened skin. Dust coated his clothes and the wide brim of his Stetson, marking him as someone who'd spent long hours on the trail. "A stranger. Something like that," she replied, surprised by her own candor. The stranger's lips curved into a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Name's Adam Daniels," he said, extending a calloused hand. "Just rode in looking for work." Penelope hesitated before accepting his handshake. "Penelope Radcliff. Pleasure, Miss Radcliff." His hand was warm and rough against her skin, the brief contact sending an unexpected jolt through her. "I don't suppose you know who might be hiring in these parts." Before she could answer, the stagecoach door swung open, and a portly man in an expensive but travel-worn suit emerged, scanning the street with the proprietary air of someone accustomed to ownership. His gaze landed on Penelope, eyes narrowing in assessment. "That would be your funeral procession," she murmured, stepping away from Adam Daniels. The cowboy's brow furrowed as he followed her gaze. "Meaning, my fiancé," she replied, the word tasting like sand in her mouth. "A man I've never met." The corners of Adam's mouth tightened. "Arranged. Like a business transaction." She smoothed her skirts, straightening her shoulders as the man approached. "Because that's exactly what it is." Adam Daniels watched as Penelope crossed the dusty street, her spine straight as a ramrod, chin held high. There was something in her eyes that tugged at him, a trapped wildness that reminded him of the Mustangs he'd broken in his younger days. Before he could ponder further, the storekeeper called out to him, asking about his business in Prosperity Creek. Henry Benson was exactly what Penelope had expected: practical, businesslike, and entirely indifferent to her as a person. Their introduction was brief, his handshake perfunctory as he informed her they would be wed within the week. He had mining interests to attend to and couldn't spare more time than that for domestic matters. "I trust the arrangements will be adequate," he said, surveying the modest boarding house where she had been staying since her arrival from Boston 3 weeks prior. "Your father spoke highly of your practical nature. I've no use for frivolity in a wife." Penelope nodded, the words she wanted to say trapped behind her teeth. What could she say? That her father had sold her to the highest bidder to cover his gambling debts. That the family business he claimed needed investment had been lost years ago. "I understand, Mr. Benson," she replied instead, her voice impressively steady. "Good." He checked his pocket watch. "I have meetings with potential investors. The ceremony will be Saturday at 10. I've arranged everything with the minister." As he walked away, Penelope remained rooted to the spot, fighting the urge to run in the opposite direction. But where would she go? With what money? Her father had made it abundantly clear that there would be no home for her if she refused this arrangement. Later that evening, As Penelope sat alone on the boarding house porch, a familiar figure approached through the gathering twilight. "Miss Radcliff." Adam Daniels tipped his hat. "Found myself some temporary work at the livery. Owner needs help breaking some new stock." "Congratulations," she said, attempting a smile that didn't quite form. "Saw your fiancé earlier." He leaned against the porch railing, his presence somehow both imposing and comforting. "Seemed in quite a hurry to be elsewhere. Mr. Benson is a busy man. Mining interests and investments require attention. And his bride doesn't." The blunt question surprised her. "It's not that kind of arrangement, Mr. Daniels." "Adam," he corrected. "And what kind of arrangement is it, if you don't mind my asking?" Perhaps it was the genuine curiosity in his eyes, or simply the need to speak the truth to someone, but Penelope found herself explaining. The family's financial ruin, her father's desperate bargain, the cold calculation of it all. "So you're the collateral," Adam said when she finished, his voice tight with something that might have been anger. A crude but accurate assessment. She sighed, watching the first stars appear in the deepening sky. "It's not uncommon. Many women have faced worse fates." "That doesn't make it right." He shifted, and in the lantern light she could see the tension in his jaw. "What would you do if you had a choice, Penelope?" The question caught her off guard. No one had asked her that before, not her father, not her mother, certainly not Henry Benson. What would she choose if she could? "I would want to be known," she said finally, the answer surprising even her. "Not as someone's daughter or someone's wife, just known for myself." Adam nodded slowly, as if her words confirmed something he'd already suspected. "Saturday, you said. That's when the wedding is to take place?" "Yes. Why do you ask?" He straightened, adjusting his hat. "Just curious." "Good night, Miss Radcliff." As he walked away, Penelope couldn't shake the feeling that something significant had just transpired, though she couldn't have said what it was. The next morning dawned with unexpected commotion. Henry Benson's booming voice could be heard throughout the small town as he stormed from the hotel to the sheriff's office, demanding action. It seemed that during the night, someone had broken into his room and stolen a lockbox containing contracts, cash, and most damning letters revealing the true nature of his mining interests. "Fraud," whispered Mrs. Tanner, the boarding house proprietress, as she served Penelope breakfast. "Sheriff found documents proving Mr. Benson has been selling shares in mines that don't exist, or that belong to other people. They've got him in custody now." Penelope sat stunned, her teacup halfway to her lips. "But the wedding?" Mrs. Tanner snorted. "I don't imagine there'll be one now, dear. Not unless you fancy being married to a jailbird. Though from what I hear, he'll likely be transported back east to face charges there as well. Seems your Mr. Benson has quite a history." "He's not my anything," Penelope murmured, a strange lightness beginning to unfurl in her chest. "Well, that's fortunate, considering." Mrs. Tanner patted her hand sympathetically. "But it does leave you in a predicament, doesn't it? Will you be returning to your family now?" The lightness vanished. Return to her father, who would surely find another buyer for her. The very thought made her stomach clench. "I don't know," she admitted. After breakfast, Penelope found herself walking toward the livery, drawn there by an inexplicable certainty. Sure enough, Adam Daniels was in the corral, his shirt sleeves rolled up as he worked with a spirited bay horse. He looked up as she approached, and something in his expression told her he'd been expecting her. "Heard about Benson," he said, coming to lean against the fence. "Terrible shame." But there was no shame in his voice, only a carefully controlled satisfaction that made her narrow her eyes. "The sheriff said someone broke into his room during the night," she said carefully. "Someone who knew exactly what they were looking for. Interesting." Adam brushed dust from his hands. "Lucky break for you, though. Was it luck, Mr. Daniels? She challenged. His eyes met hers unflinching. Sometimes fate needs a helping hand, Miss Radcliffe. The admission hung between them. He had done this, risked himself for her, a woman he barely knew. Why? She asked simply. Because no one should be sold like cattle. His gaze softened. And because I recognized something in you the moment we met. Something worth fighting for. Before she could respond, the livery owner called for Adam, breaking the moment. With a tip of his hat, he returned to work, leaving Penelope with far more questions than answers. That evening, a letter arrived from her father. Somehow, news of Benson's arrest had already reached him, carried by telegraph. The contents were exactly what she expected: recriminations, demands that she return home immediately so he could salvage the situation. Penelope read it twice, then fed it to the fire in Mrs. Tanner's parlor, watching the paper curl and blacken. She had $18 to her name, enough for perhaps 2 more weeks at the boarding house. After that, "Excuse me, Miss Radcliffe." Mrs. Tanner appeared in the doorway. "There's someone asking for you on the porch." Adam Daniels stood in the gathering dusk, hat in his hands, looking uncharacteristically hesitant. "I'm leaving tomorrow," he said without preamble. "Got word of work on a ranch north of here. Good work, steady pay." "I see." She was surprised by the sharp disappointment that cut through her. "Well, I wish you safe travels. Thing is," he continued, "I've been thinking about what you said, about wanting to be known." His fingers worried the brim of his hat. "I know we've only just met, but I'd like the chance to know you, Penelope Radcliffe, really know you." She stared at him, uncomprehending. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying you were promised to a stranger." He took a step closer, his eyes reflecting the golden light spilling from the windows. "Then let me be the stranger who stays." The words hung in the air between them, simple and profound. "You're offering marriage?" she asked, disbelieving. "I'm offering a choice," he corrected. "Come with me, not as my wife, not yet. That's something you should decide when you know your own mind, but as my partner. The ranch needs a bookkeeper, someone with education. That could be you." "Partners," she repeated slowly, testing the word. "Not property. Never property." His voice was firm. "I can't offer wealth or security like Benson pretended to, just honest work and the freedom to choose your own path." Penelope looked at this man, this stranger who had upended her life in the span of 2 days. It was madness to even consider his offer. Reckless, potentially ruinous, and yet, "When do we leave?" she asked. The journey north took 4 days, traveling first by stagecoach and then by wagon through increasingly rugged country. Each night they camped under the vast Montana sky, and each day Penelope learned more about the man she had impulsively decided to trust. Adam Daniels had been born in Pennsylvania, the son of a blacksmith. He'd fought for the Union during the war, though he spoke little of those years. Afterward, he drifted west, working cattle drives and breaking horses, saving what money he could. "The ranch belongs to a widow named Eleanor Walsh," he explained as they made camp on the 3rd night. "Her husband died last winter. She's kept it running, but she needs help, someone who knows horses and someone who can manage the accounts. And you trust that this position exists?" "That she'll honor the arrangement," Adam smiled. "Mrs. Walsh was my captain's wife during the war. He saved my life at Antietam. When she wrote asking for help, I couldn't refuse." "You're a good man, Adam Daniels," Penelope said softly. He looked away, poking at the campfire. "I've made my share of mistakes, done things I'm not proud of, like stealing from Henry Benson." His eyes flickered to hers. "I didn't steal anything that wasn't already stolen. Those papers proved he'd defrauded dozens of people. I just redistributed the evidence." "My father will be furious," she mused. "He'll likely disown me when he discovers I've run off. Do you regret it?" Coming with me, Penelope considered the question, watching the flames dance. In the short time since leaving Prosperity Creek, she had slept under the stars, forded a river, learned to drive a team of horses, and spoken more honestly than she had in years. Her hands were blistered, her dress was dusty beyond salvation, and her hair had long since fallen from its pins. "No," she said finally, "I don't regret it at all." The Walsh Ranch came into view the next afternoon, a sprawling collection of buildings nestled in a verdant valley, backed by towering mountains. Cattle dotted the hillsides, and a curl of smoke rose from the main house chimney. Eleanor Walsh greeted them at the door, a formidable woman with silver-streaked hair and keen eyes that missed nothing. Her welcome was cautious but genuine, especially after Adam explained Penelope's situation. "Well," Eleanor said, assessing Penelope, "I can't say I approve of young ladies running off with men they've just met, but given the circumstances, I can hardly blame you, and God knows I need help with the accounts. My Jeremiah was the one with the head for figures. I won't disappoint you, Mrs. Walsh," Penelope promised. "See that you don't. And you'll have separate quarters, Adam in the bunkhouse with the other hands, you in the small room off the kitchen. I may be sympathetic to your plight, but I still run a respectable house." The following weeks established a rhythm. Penelope immersed herself in the ranch's ledgers, untangling years of haphazard bookkeeping. Adam worked from dawn until dusk with the horses and cattle, often returning too exhausted for more than a brief exchange before he collapsed into bed. Yet despite their separate duties, Penelope found herself watching for him, treasuring the moments when their paths crossed. A shared meal, a conversation on the porch as the sun set. Brief moments when their hands would touch as he passed her a plate or helped her down from the wagon, each contact sending that same inexplicable jolt through her body. One evening, as June gave way to July, Penelope sat on the porch, enjoying the cooler air after a stifling day. Adam joined her, freshly washed and changed from his work clothes. "You've been good for this place," he said, nodding toward the main house where lamplight glowed through the windows. "Mrs. Walsh says the books haven't been this orderly since her husband was alive." "It's satisfying work," Penelope admitted. "Different from what I expected my life to be, but I feel useful here, needed." "And are you happy?" The question was softly asked, but Penelope heard the weight behind it. "I'm finding my way to it," she answered honestly. "There are still moments when I wonder if I've made a terrible mistake, if I should have found a more conventional path. If you want to leave, I would understand," Adam said, though the tightness around his eyes belied his casual tone. "I could arrange passage back east. Is that what you want?" She turned to face him fully. "For me to leave? No." The word was simple but fervent. "That's the last thing I want." The admission hung between them, charged with unspoken feeling. Before either could say more, a ranch hand called for Adam. There was trouble with one of the horses. With a frustrated sigh, he rose. "We'll finish this conversation later," he promised. But later proved elusive. The troubled horse had injured itself badly, requiring Adam's full attention through the night and into the next day. By the time the crisis passed, new demands had arisen: a broken fence line, predators threatening the northern herd, preparations for the upcoming cattle drive. July melted into August, the days growing shorter as summer began its slow surrender to fall. Penelope found herself increasingly restless, waiting for a continuation of a conversation that never seemed to happen. Then the letter arrived. It came with the monthly supply wagon, addressed in her father's unmistakable handwriting. For a long moment, Penelope simply stared at it, her stomach knotting with dread. "Bad news?" Eleanor asked, pausing in her bread-making. "I don't know yet." Penelope broke the seal with trembling fingers, The contents were worse than she'd imagined. Her father had tracked her to the Walsh Ranch. How? She couldn't imagine, unless someone in Prosperity Creek had talked. He announced his intention to arrive within the week to collect her, bringing with him a new prospect for marriage, a banker from Denver who was willing to overlook her indiscretion in exchange for the family connections. "He's coming here," Penelope whispered, the letter crumpling in her grasp. "My father, he intends to take me back." Eleanor wiped her flour-covered hands on her apron. "And do you intend to be taken?" "No." The vehemence of her own response surprised her. "No, I don't, but I don't know how to stop him. Legally, I have no standing, no protection." A calculating look crossed Eleanor's face. "There might be a way, but you'll need to be certain of what you want." That evening, Eleanor called a meeting in the main house. Penelope, Adam, and the ranch's foreman gathered around the large oak table as she outlined her plan. "Mr. Radcliff has no authority over a married woman," Eleanor explained, her gaze moving from Penelope to Adam. "If you two were wed before he arrives, he'd have no legal claim." Penelope's heart hammered against her ribs. Marriage. The very institution she'd fled from in Prosperity Creek now presented as her salvation. It would be a real marriage, Eleanor continued, practical as ever. "Not some temporary arrangement. I won't have any part in deception." Adam had remained silent, his expression unreadable. Now he turned to Penelope, his eyes searching hers. "This should be your choice," he said quietly. "Not something forced on you by circumstance." Again, the room fell silent, all eyes on her. Penelope thought of the past months, the freedom she'd found on the ranch, the purpose in her work, the slow-building feelings she could no longer deny. "If I were to marry," she said carefully, "it wouldn't be because of my father. It would be because I've found someone worth choosing." Her gaze held Adam's. "Someone I want to know and be known by for the rest of my life." A smile dawned across Adam's face, transforming it. "Then let me be clear about my intentions, Penelope Radcliff. I love you. I think I began loving you the moment you stood on that porch in Prosperity Creek, facing your future with more courage than most men I've known in battle. I would be honored to be your husband, not as a solution to a problem, but as the beginning of a life together." "Well," Eleanor said, breaking the charged silence that followed, "that settles it. I'll ride for the minister tomorrow." 2 days later, with Eleanor and the ranch hands as witnesses, Penelope Radcliff became Penelope Daniels in a simple ceremony beneath the old oak tree behind the main house. She wore her best dress, adorned with wildflowers gathered by the cook's young daughter. Adam wore a clean shirt and the only tie he owned, his hair still damp from washing. As they spoke their vows, Penelope felt none of the dread that had accompanied her almost wedding to Henry Benson. Instead, there was a certainty, a rightness that filled her chest until she thought it might burst. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the minister declared. "You may kiss your bride." Adam's lips met hers, gentle at first, then with growing passion as the ranch hands whooped and cheered. When they finally parted, both breathless, he rested his forehead against hers. "No regrets," he whispered. "None," she replied, and knew it for absolute truth. They had barely settled into their new quarters, the small cabin Eleanor had insisted on giving them as a wedding gift, when riders approached the ranch. Penelope recognized her father immediately, his posture rigid with disapproval even at a distance. "Let me handle this," Adam said, squeezing her hand before striding out to meet the arrivals. Penelope watched from the porch as her father dismounted, accompanied by a thin, nervous-looking man she assumed was the banker from Denver. The conversation was too distant to hear, but she could read the growing frustration in her father's gestures, the calm resolve in Adam's stance. Finally, her father stormed toward the cabin, Adam following at a careful distance. "What is the meaning of this?" Gerald Radcliffe demanded, face flushed with anger as he confronted his daughter. "This cowhand claims you've married him. Tell me this is some ridiculous joke." Penelope lifted her chin, meeting his gaze steadily. "It's no joke, Father. Adam is my husband. We were married 2 days ago." "Impossible. I forbid it. You will return with me immediately and we will have this farce annulled." "No." The word was simple but absolute. "I'm exactly where I want to be with exactly who I've chosen." Her father's face contorted. "You ungrateful girl. After everything I've sacrificed. Penelope's laugh held no humor. "You sold me to cover your gambling debts. Fortunately, Mr. Benson's criminal activities were exposed before that particular transaction could be completed." "Now see here." "No, you see here," Adam interrupted, his voice level but steel-edged. "Your daughter is my wife. She's built a life here, a good life, with people who respect her for her mind and her character, not for what connections or advantages she might bring. You have no claim on her anymore." For a moment, Gerald Radcliffe seemed ready to explode with rage. Then, abruptly, he deflated, suddenly appearing old and tired. "You've made your choice, then," he said to Penelope. "I have." She reached for Adam's hand, drawing strength from his steady presence. "I wish you well, Father, but my future is here." Without another word, Gerald Radcliffe turned and walked back to his horse. The banker, who had maintained a prudent distance throughout the confrontation, hurried to follow. Within minutes, they were riding away, dust billowing behind them. "Are you all right?" Adam asked softly. Penelope nodded, surprised to find it was true. There was sadness, yes, for the relationship with her father that had never truly existed. But overwhelmingly, she felt relieved, even free. "I'm more than all right," she said, turning to face her husband. "I'm home." The seasons turned, summer yielding to a glorious autumn and then to a winter of startling beauty. The work was hard, the days long, but Penelope found joy in it and in the life she and Adam were building together. By spring, the changes were undeniable. The slight rounding of her belly, the tenderness in her breasts, the knowing looks from Alina, who had become more family than employer. "When will you tell him?" Alina asked one afternoon as they worked in the kitchen garden, planting the season's first seedlings. "Tonight," Penelope decided, one hand resting protectively over her stomach. "He's been so busy with the foaling I've hardly seen him, but tonight we'll celebrate." The celebration became something more, a reaffirmation of the choice they'd made that day on the boarding house porch in Prosperity Creek. Adam's joy at the news of impending fatherhood was incandescent, his reverent touch on her still flat stomach a promise of devotion that needed no words. "Did you ever imagine this?" he asked later as they lay entwined in their bed, the moonlight streaming through the window. "That day when we first met, did you ever think we'd end up here?" Penelope smiled, remembering the dust-coated stranger who had changed the course of her life with an act of unexpected gallantry and later, with an offer of partnership that had become so much more. "No," she admitted. "But that's the beauty of it, isn't it? Life isn't about fulfilling arrangements made by others. It's about finding the courage to make your own choices." She pressed a kiss to his chest, right above his heart. "And I choose you, Adam Daniels. Every day I choose you." "And I choose you, Penelope Daniels," he replied, his arms tightening around her. "The stranger who stayed, the woman I love, now and always." Outside their window, the Montana night spread vast and star-filled above the ranch, the land that had become their home, the place where their child would be born, the foundation of a future neither could have predicted but both had chosen. Together.